let's kick off and try and catch people as they arrive. So, good afternoon and welcome to this afternoon's PTIC meeting. Hope you're enjoying the slightly warmer, brighter weather, a bit less wet and horrible. Spent 2 days in Manchester with some of you earlier this week and it didn't rain. It was truly remarkable and spring-like. So, yeah. Okay, so we have quite a lot to get through as ever. So let's kick off. Let's do some introductions first. So I'm Tim Rivet from Artig Inform, and I am your chair today. So if we just do a quick rundown, so we all know who each other is, and Teresa has a chance of recording you for the minutes. Amy. Okay, minutes of the last meeting. Thank you, Nick, for doing these. There was an action around National Coach database and Heathrow data quality. Is that something that you're going to pick up, Simon, as part of your update, or do we address it here?
Address it here. I'm not. Sorry, I'm not prepared on that one.
Okay, right. Okay, fair enough. We will come back to that one then. Multi-operator ticketing. I know Triumph didn't have a chat with Ian because Triumph left just before Christmas, left the team before Christmas. But I've had a chat with Ian about multi-operator ticketing. And so this is where you have a shared scheme, and at the moment you need to have a operator to seed the data to take ownership for creating the multi-operator ticketing scheme in the first place in BODS, and then everybody else can effectively join that. And so there's a lot of work going on trying to get operators to become that seed operator. David.
Yeah, it's just a question we've had from operators on that. They don't all seem to know who their lead operators are, and some of them have been told that ENCTS counts as a multi-operator product. Have we got any guidance we can give on that?
So in terms of who the lead operator is, there isn't an assigned lead operator. They just need to agree amongst themselves who that's going to be. The big groups are trying to go around and make sure that they're set up, but so it's worth having a word with the Stagecoaches, First Arrivas, Go Aheads of this world in an area to see where they're at with it for a particular scheme. And on ENCTS, that is a very good question. I think anybody from the department know the answer to that one? Yeah. Okay. I think that is worth we'll have to get back to you. But yeah, that's the first time I've heard it. But I think you might be right from a journey planning point of view. So yeah, we'll get back to you. Ian, you had your hand. Welcome, Ian. You had your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Yeah, we sort of moved it on a little bit, and I was trying to own it because it is a Lancashire County Council scheme. I was trying to own it, but because I'm not an operator, I couldn't. So I picked on one of our smaller guys and used them, and it's an absolute nightmare. Is all I can say in putting it in order to work out all the potential naptan stops. It calls that to then assign to give access to other operators to do it. It is a bit of a mare. So the one in Preston, it turned out to be we ended up selecting about 800 stops. And you think, okay, it's only 800 stops. There you go. But the one we launched one in East Lancs, and it's sort of Burnley, Nelson, Pendle, Ribble Valley, etc. We're talking thousands. There's got to be a different way of doing this, because that is really time consuming. For the originator, once I'm kind of hoping, because I'll try it on some of the other smaller operators who are part of the same scheme, I'm kind of hoping, because I've set it in the first one, they'll just select the services that use those stops, and it only assigns on those stops entirely. And then if you're going to go and add in a new bus stop in, you've got to go and add that in. It is a bit of a mare, is all I can say.
Were you using the fair tool to do
Yeah,
that?
the create for whatever it is, yeah, pointed to by as was KPMG and now not. So yeah. Interesting if anybody else has had experience, and if there's a different way of doing it, feel free to pass it on. But to work out the stops was quite entertaining.
Yeah.
I'm not easily entertained, but it was bloody entertaining.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. And then next one was post-implementation review. Do we know when that might be published?
Yeah, so we're hoping to get up to ministers shortly. So we're going to go for internal processes approval next week. I've got a session on Monday. Hopefully a sub will go up within a week or so of that, and then it'll probably take a couple of weeks to get a decision on the submission. But the actual work is practically complete. It's been through the machine a few times for review, and it's ready to go.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And then the next one was me to talk to Karen about involvement in the working groups that RTG are running, which I've done. And that was it last time. So is there anything else on last set of minutes? No. Okay. In which case, we're just shaking up the order of the agenda a little bit this time, rather than the normal one. So let's go to Traveline to start with. Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. I'll just share my screen. If you just let us know when you can see it. We're has that appeared?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. Those that have attended the meeting over the last 12 months will have heard me talking about the development of the new Traveline website and journey planner. So just over 12 months ago, we awarded a contract to Passenger, who many of you will be aware of, quite well known in the industry. They provide a lot of operators, website and ticketing apps across the piece. And we awarded them a contract last year to develop 3 of our websites. That was the Plus Bus website, the Traveline website, which is what you can see in front of you here, and also our Traveline data website. And within the deal that we agree with them, also included an app for the Traveline site. So what you're looking at there now is the first sneak preview of the brand new Traveline website. We are scheduled to go live in the next few weeks. We're just doing some final tweaks with Passenger over the next couple of weeks. And then the idea is that ideally we will be going live before the end of March. So first of all, completely new design, which was brought to us by Passenger, based on a lot of kind of current travel websites using vector images rather than kind of real imagery in there, softening the colours and making use really of a lot more kind of cleaner space in there. So it is a journey planning website, and I think that's hopefully one of the things that does kind of jump out. One of the things we did keep in play was the widget that you see in the homepage. There was something that existing customers did like the layout of the widget, with some kind of tweaks to make the usability a little bit easier. And as well, what the widget comes into play as well is that we can embed that widget on any third-party site, and they get all the journey planning functionality that goes on there. So we have this currently in play on a number of NHS websites, Good Journey, Plus Bus, and a number of local authority sites as well, that again, behind the scenes, enjoy all the functionality that the journey planner offers. So we all know how a journey planner works, I'm sure, on the call, but just to give you an idea, and I've set up some screens because it is a little slow because we are still in a dev environment. I think one of the things just to point out was that the API call is one of the major improvements behind the scenes. So in the current site, we would generally bring through the fastest journey. So what you're seeing on the screen now is a journey between York and Leeds, which generally speaking, the fastest options on there are train. One of the things Passenger have been able to do in the background is to tweak the API call so we can now bring in comparable bus journeys for the likes of these faster journeys. So just to give you an example, on the current site, that's the same journey plan that just gives us 3 options to go by train, because they all go before the bus journeys and actually get there quicker. So that's all that's offered, as is the case on a number of journey planners. So some of the changes that we've made now, you can now see on the journey plan, we've now got those 843 services, which are significantly longer than the train options. But actually, when you're comparing kind of cost and time, it's up to a customer to make that decision. So customers have always been able to filter by bus only, but we're now able to kind of give those options within the first plan that they get. So again, they can make those decisions themselves. Again, in terms of the options that we do provide, they're all stacked kind of top to bottom. That was something that customers said they liked in the kind of current design, but they did say they like interacting with the map more. So we've made the map more prominent, and the kind of journey plan results down the left there. You still get the same responses. Customer can go in and out of the map based on the area that they're particularly looking at. They can also view the live departure boards. They can access the timetables and still also access the operator contact details from here. So nothing's been lost from a customer point of view in there. One of the things we've kind of added in, which doesn't really impact the journey plan per se, but it does give the customer an idea of the level of CO2 they're saving by making public transport choices. So just a nice little bolt on that kind of Passenger have thrown in as part of the installation. Further to that, we've also got the live departures I mentioned in there as well. And just going forward with those now, we can now provide a little bit more information on here. So customers can search via postcode, location, NAPTAN or ATCO code. They can also drill in at a stop and find the stop at street level and access that stop. And what we'll do here is we'll just nip into the departures. So the departures are now listed. Again, grey services are in schedule form. The green with the pulsing icon are real-time information or coming live from a real-time feed. But one of the additional add-ons that we brought in, particularly from an accessibility point of view, was that we're now able to see, it says if it works, each stop is now listed there in Google Maps as well, so customers can get down to street level. One of the things that we working with the NAPTAN team on was around the kind of getting accessibility data into NAPTAN. And one of the things that we were always kind of keen on was that customers can make their own decision around the accessibility around stops. You know, what's accessible to one customer isn't necessarily the same to others. So now at least we are given a representation, acknowledging of course that, you know, Google Maps, you're only as good as what Google Maps or Google Street View is up to date. But what it does give is another representation to a customer that they didn't have in the current iteration. Moving forward to timetables, this list of again through a timetable search, so just searching in Leeds. And one of the things in here, again, stacks the timetables as you'd expect. And we will be bringing in PDF downloads for timetables. But I think the key thing that I was wanting to illustrate on this screen, we are now bringing through the disruption information from the BODS tool, which is a major step forward. And hopefully as well, you know, where it's been input by local authorities, we're now picking that up and displaying it. And hopefully this will encourage more authorities to kind of follow suit going forward, because it really is, you know, in terms of the testing that we've done, it's been really well received, the fact that information's in there. So that information appears alongside each of the timetables. And also, just to give an example of one of those in journey plan form, the number 4 in there should have it. So again, when the customer's planning the journey, again, the active updates will appear then in there as well. So like I said, wherever they're getting the information, we're presenting it alongside it, which again is really, from our point of view, is a major step forward. Some of the other additional things that we've put into the site as well, mainly to kind of increase the search engine optimization of the site, is that we've worked with a company called Good Journeys, or an organisation called Good Journey, over the last few years. They're a car-free champion organisation who go around and negotiate discounted offers to attractions when people arrive using public transport. So they've produced a raft of content that we've commissioned, and what we're able to now do is present that information within the site itself. So we can go on a day out in Yorkshire and Humber and to the art house. We've now got information around the offer, links to the various sites, but they can also plan a journey directly to there as well. So we can kind of show them how to get to and from the venue, but hopefully as well, it will kind of illustrate the fact you can get the likes of 2-for-1s and discounted. So it's just some additional content that hopefully helps colour in the site a little bit, provide some ideas for people. But when people are now searching for the art house in Wakefield, Traveline will appear in amongst those search results. Again, it just kind of prompts and joins, the 2 dots up that we've got there. Another step that we've made as well is around the kind of the help section. So we've always had the kind of how to use our site, and we've got frequently asked questions ready, so we can answer questions before they arrive at our door. But because we're a relatively small team, the other thing that we've done is really we get inundated with queries, people wanting refunds from Traveline, or saying that the bus wasn't running or whatever it may be. So what we've tried to do now is to, with the forms down the right hand side there, allow us to ask the right information off, so the customer provides it at the first point of contact. Again, we've often found over the years that we'll get inundated in the inbox and then have to ask more questions, so we're kind of inviting a back and forth response. So hopefully this one, things like feedback from the call center, we need the telephone number, we need the date and time that you're doing. You would be surprised how many people don't provide that, but now in the new form we do get that, so it kind of helps streamline the whole customer feedback process as well. We also offer the customer the opportunity now to set their own account. This will link to both the website and the app when the app comes out, which should be about 4 to 6 weeks after the launch of the website. That's all being confirmed at the minute. But the customer can set their own account. They can have their own favourites, which you may have seen on the homepage. These are my favourites down here. And also in the Plan Your Journey, we can store favourites in here. So these are stored both in on the website and in the app, but it hopefully helps the customer get to the stop that they use the most, get to the service that they use the most, rather than having to filter and search every time that they enter the site as well. So hopefully makes the whole user experience a lot better for customers going forward. That's the first iteration of the site, as I say, that hopefully will go live in the next few weeks. Coming shortly after that, we will be bringing in Plus Bus information, where we'll be presenting Plus Bus zones on the map where tickets or journeys qualify for a Plus Bus ticket, to inform the customer that if you're making that journey, you can tag on a Plus Bus ticket, and here's the zone that travels in there. And we've got a zone cutting tool which brings through all the kind of naps and stops as well, so hopefully it'll help present it in the right places where we need it. General fares, we're also looking at how we bring those through, because that's the thing that everybody wants, but it's how and what do we provide. So that's currently being discussed as well at the minute. We're going to look to bring improved information through from Good Journey. So when you saw on the journey plan response on the map there, when someone plans a journey A to B, even though they're not asking for that information, we'll present that on the map, that here's some ideas of attractions you might visit in those areas where you can get discounts. So again, just to trigger the user that you might not want it this time, but here's something that triggers another public transport journey, and hopefully discount to an attraction as well. So all that's, let's say, due to come in the next few weeks, and then as I say, we'll get a program of work for the next phase. So it's continuous development that we're looking at bringing through on there. Link to that, keep mentioning the Plus Bus site, which is something that one of the things we did ask passenger. This went live before Christmas, that you'll note that it looks and feels very much part of the Traveline family, which is a key part of the brief. So that's been live now, well received, and a lot more user friendly than the previous version. I think linked with that, we also launched the Plus Bus e-ticket last April, so we're now 46 weeks live with that. And during that period, we've seen a 64% increase in sales and a 50% increase in revenue. So that was all kind of combined with the kind of site going live as well. So quite a lot of work going on behind the scenes in Plus Bus. And then the third cab off the rank with passenger, as I mentioned, is the Traveline data website. So that's where users can interact with the NOC database. They can get TNDS from there and also sign up for next buses. The ideal date for going live with that will be the back end of April, and that will be the full suite of sites then that we will have delivered. So That's what we've been working on, Tim, over the last few months, and I'll pass back to you to the floor for any questions.
Yeah, thank you. So we've got a couple of hands up. Mike.
Yeah, just to one of the things I noticed in the screen that showed the live departures was the scheduled departures. It was coloured differently for scheduled departures as against tracked departures. Well, non-tracked and versus tracked, but normally the convention is for non-tracked. It shows the times in absolute time rather than relative time, but I noticed that they were all relative times. Is that because that to me is wrong in terms of what I'm used to, shall we say?
Yeah. No, that is it. So we've been guided by passenger on this one, Mike, and you're right. I think from where my background of 20 years at Wicker prior to arriving at Traveline, on all our real-time systems, there's a countdown time for the times that are real-time and then a scheduled time for those that aren't. And I think those of us in the industry know that, but it's whether customers actually interpret that and that they just see a time that a bus should be arriving at a stop. So one of the things we took from passenger was that on their across their kind of installations, and like I say, they work with 100+ operators. This is how they've displayed the times. So what we are looking at doing is that on the app, we've got an information icon which is currently being embedded in the site behind the scenes that will explain the difference to customers. So where it's got a green flashing countdown, that's being tracked by real time. Where it hasn't, it's not tracked by real time. But it's so we're still making this distinguish between them two. There may be the possibility to change that. I think what we're keen to do is just to see how this one plays out. And like I say, we're being guided by passenger, who over the last 10 years have probably become the industry leader in delivering these. So we'd like to see how this goes, and then we'll take some customer feedback. One of the things I should have probably mentioned as well is within the next 6 months as well, we'll be redoing the Transport Focus customer feedback that we did prior to doing the site, which was done a couple of years ago, just to kind of pick up on that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a step out of the norm, but we're going to see how it goes.
Okay, thanks. And just one other thing, presumably this test site is not available for any of us lot to look at. Presumably we need to wait for it to be released for real. Yeah.
At the moment, Mike, because like I said, I was a bit nervous about bringing it up today because they are building behind the scenes still, so things are changing in real time. So we may be able to share something ahead of go live, but we're hoping to go live. Like I said, ideally, last week in March is what we're looking at the minute. So we should be able to give you the real thing, rather than saying, and plus the more people that are on it does disrupt them in the background as well. So it's so yeah, if there's anything specific you do want to have a look at, more than happy to jump on a call and we can kind of drill into some of the things in individual people's areas, because the more people that see it, the better. But we have had some quite rigorous testing from various regional stakeholders, the call centre in Wales, and various customers as well. So if you do want to have a look at something specific, Mike, more than happy to jump on a call to kind of walk through a few examples.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Nick.
Yeah, a couple of queries. Firstly, where are you sourcing the live bus movements from?
We haven't got live tracking in there at the minute, Nick. We will be. That's one of the other things actually was on the list that we should mention that we are looking at bringing in. So the real time that you're seeing on there is coming from the Next Buses feed. So the Traveline Next Buses.
Right. Okay. And that's the plan going forward, is it?
Yes. Yeah. We continue to take it through the Next Buses. Yeah.
So how are we going to? So where an operator, or in our case, Transport for Cornwall, is using a passenger app, which might be taking vehicle details from a different source, how do we ensure that the data is the same? So that customers aren't confused by multiple sets of data.
Do you mean in your solutions, Nick, against what we've got in ours?
Yeah. So, will customers who are using basically different apps for passenger back end see the same data?
They should do if the Next Bus, if the same feed is being used. But if different feeds are being used, there is the chance that something could be different just based on how that feed's interpreted.
Yeah. Yes, don't talk to me about how feeds are interpreted at the moment. I'm having a few challenges around that.
Absolutely.
So, and then with the disruptions, where if passenger are ingesting the BODS feed for your website, are they then going to ingest that feed into their individual operator websites? Or because again, we could get a situation of different interpretations of the same information in different sources. It has to be single source of truth, surely.
That's why we've kind of hooked up with the BODS feed, Nick, on this one initially, because that was seen. Or the aspiration is that to be the kind of single source of the truth. So that's why we kind of ingested that. But you are right. Operators who have their individual apps could do it. Could put in their own apps and do that. I suppose the only challenge comes from when you've got is how distinct the different user groups are. So somebody who's based in Cornwall, for example, is likely to use the Cornwall app. They're not necessarily going to interact with the Traveline app unless they need to go further afield.
But I want those users to see the same disruption message.
Ideally, yeah. Which is why we've used this. So I suppose if everybody could get the information within there, then we all take it from the same place and we all put it against the same services in an ideal world.
Well, there's also the question of time and effort in terms of inputting the disruption, because it shouldn't be the case that a disruption needs to be entered into the BODS tool to serve one app and into another tool to serve another app. That's, we've got to get away from that in this industry.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right, and I suppose that's in the ideal world. If it all went into the disruption messaging tool, we all got it from there. And I suppose that does mean it goes from everywhere, doesn't it? Because I suppose one of the things about operators putting in their own app means it only appears in their app. It doesn't go anywhere else. Whereas in the BODS tool, it is available openly for others to go in and use that and display that.
Well, yeah, currently in Cornwall, we're keying the same disruption 3 times.
Yeah.
Once into BODS, once into Passenger Cloud, and once into ICS with NICT. Yeah, we've got to get to the point where it's going into the BODS data and being consumed everywhere else.
Yeah,
so I think that's an interesting one, Nick, and worthy of further thought and consideration about how we move from the current position to getting more of everything in one place. I mean, we're not going to solve that one today, but it is an issue. Let's perhaps set up a court. Let's pick up on it when Simon does the BODS update, because there's the disruption service as part of that, and then perhaps have a separate call on that about how we try and get more of a strategy as a sector together to head towards that single source of truth for disruptions. Now that people are beginning to start to use the disruption tool.
I think it's a good point, Tim. I think the other thing is now people can see where it goes, and I know when in my early days, in my days at Wicker, when they first brought the disruption message tool, trying to convince people to put something in somewhere that didn't appear anywhere, or couldn't, maybe didn't appear anywhere. I think now you can see it, it lands somewhere. And I suppose to your point as well, Nick, that if Passenger have been able to bring in the disruption messaging feed, there's nothing stopping at your end, so therefore could it just go straight into that feed rather than you having to key it 3 times? You might just have to do it twice in the interim and then look to kind of reduce that further. But I think, like Tim said, it's worth us getting our heads together on it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, John.
I had some of the same concerns as Nick. I mean, can I say, in principle, this looks very exciting, and when it goes live, I shall look forward to using it. And I appreciate the huge amount of work and imagination that's gone into it, and I think all credit is due to those involved. As a geographer, I'm not persuaded that Google Maps are ideal for the purpose you're using them, but that's an argument we can have another time. What I am concerned, though, is the extent to which TfL's operations are integrated into this. I live on the edge of London, and there's a real issue there with real-time information at bus stops, because non-London buses talk to a different satellite from London buses. You can either have real-time for a TfL route, or you can have real-time for other routes, but you can't have both at the same place because they can't agree as to which system to use. And it would be a tragedy if that kind of issue were replicated here.
Yeah, it is something that we are looking at, John. You're right. It is an issue. It has always been an issue for those, particularly like yourself, just living on the outskirts there. But we are looking within the kind of Next Buses service about bringing in feeds from London in particular. So that's something that we are working on and we're acutely aware of.
Well, I'm glad. I mean, that's half the bus market in Britain.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so,
yeah.
It's fairly
Yeah, and
imperative.
the data tells us that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
we get a lot of use from them. We get a lot of use people calling our API and getting scheduled times at the minute. So yeah, that's something we are actively working on in the background.
Well, I'm glad to know you're onto it. Thanks.
Okay, Dan.
Yeah, just a very quick one. I think the site looks really good. My question is around this actual page here. So to get from A to B by bus, train, or coach, do you include other modes of transport as part of that, such as London or trams and things like that? And could that do with a slight shift in name as part of it?
It's a good point, Dan. It's been this has been the strap line, as you can imagine, that all the technical stuff that John mentioned there in the background. We've all been working away on that strap line's been passed around. I don't know how many people, and you're right. That's one of the things that has been raised. So I will take your comment back, Dan, and feed that into the pot. So it's that's something we can work on, and yeah, it was a kind of very much a holding title that we'll see if we can put something in there, because yeah, we're aware that there's more than that in there, as you well know.
Perfect.
I mean,
Cool.
that picture is advertising everything. So what's on the image should be on the system.
Yeah. It was trying to get something to distill in that didn't go on for forever. But you're right, it does need a little bit of extra. So yeah, that's still a work in progress, and we'll see. I'll feed that back in. It's quite useful to get that independent stay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike.
Thanks, Tim.
So if we move on to Bus Open Data Service and an update on what they've been doing and plans.
Right, just bear with me.
Yeah.
I'll put a slide in. Apologies, I don't know what or how Triumph communicated and what was communicated. So apologies if this is a bit too low level, a bit dumbed down. And if you want some technical people next time to kind of answer technical questions, and I'll make sure they're fielded. But just in terms of what's been happening in our world, so we spent a long time reprocuring the BOD service, and that's culminated in the service now being fully transitioned from KPMG to KNOS. That's officially KPMG rolled off January the 15th, but KNOS essentially been running the service from December. There have been a few enhancements just in terms of service delivery and kind of ticket reporting. And we're really pleased to report that users can now access support by contacting support at Bus Open Data Service at Atlassian.net. Sounds a minor thing, but actually, certainly from a DFT perspective, where we get visibility and we can see all the tickets and things that are raised, and it seems like a real step forward. And we've had some real positive feedback in terms of responsiveness from KNOS, so we're really pleased with that so far. KNOS have also started to do a lot of user research in the background to understand opportunities to improve BODs and ABODs, and they may have already reached out to some of you, but we're keen that that'll help inform the backlog. The way that we've let this contract essentially is we've procured KNOS to run and maintain the existing BOD service and ABOD service with a continuous improvement element, and in addition, we're also looking at potential priced options, and one being about registrations, which I'll touch on later. But you guys play an important part in kind of helping us to continually improve the service. So we welcome your feedback. Another big element, and probably one of the big changes between KPMG and KNOS, is when we let the contract. Historically, KPMG had a business change function. We took the decision to actually split that out from the technical contract and actually have a separate contract for that. And we've called that the BODS Connect team. their role will be kind of helping users. There will be a lot of engagement. We expect them to engage with bus operators, local authorities, other key stakeholders, and just kind of help us improve the service, improve data quality, help users, etc. Where we are in terms of the procurement process. So we've done a pre-qualification phase. So we've down selected to a number of bidders, and we literally want to get this ITT out the door within the next couple of days, and we expect that contract to be awarded shortly. In terms of kind of one of the numbers that I always worry about a lot of the time, you know, when people kind of criticise BODs and data quality and completeness, that's our kind of compliance picture at the moment. It's 84%, nearly 85% for timetables, AVL 81.2, and then fares, and that's at a line level. We're working with DVSA and OTC just to see if we can move that number. Obviously, we're hoping that when the BCT come on board, they'll also help us do that and kind of target people who are having difficulties with being compliant, who are willing. And then just in terms of forward look, there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the background, which a lot of people won't see. So Canos are doing a lot of stuff to kind of improve the kind of release processes, testing stuff, which a lot of people won't see. Where it might benefit later on is actually we can speed up releases, etc. They're also doing quite a lot of stuff in the background to try and harmonize the systems, because we ended up essentially with almost like 5 different systems that look the same and have a kind of a .gov feel on the outside, but actually they're written with different languages, etc. So they're looking at how they can improve that, which will help us kind of manage the systems more efficiently going forward. So that's stuff that is going on in the background. It's taking a lot of resource and time, but people won't necessarily see that, but hopefully they'll see the benefits later on when we get a bit more faster in releasing stuff. For many people, registration's an important thing. The department's been promising to do something about it for a long time. The Bus Services Act, I think, has made provisions for registrations, particularly digital registration system. Department needs to consult on that as part of the Bus Services Act. But in the meantime, we're kickstarting some work and standing up some resource to start looking at that work, some of the technical questions, and kind of framing it to help us put together a kind of the scope of a project that can support that work and kind of fix registrations in the long term. Hopefully, have a significant impact on the overall BODS compliance through registrations. As I said, we're hoping to award the BODS Connect team contract in April. And also just to mention and a bit of a plug, we sent out expressions of interest. We're trying to stand up a data consumer and data publishing steering group, so separate groups whereby groups of people who have got those interests, either consuming BODS data or publishing BODS data, can kind of get in a room and kind of generate ideas, and in theory provide feedback and create a feedback loop between consumers and publishers, which should help inform how we develop the system and some of the processes. So we recently sent out an EOI for that. There's still time for people to show an interest, but we are going to have to close it soon because we need to actually stand the groups up and start get going so that we can start feeding into Canos and that kind of continuous improvement. That's me. Any questions?
Yeah, Nick.
Thank you, Simon. That was succinct. I didn't see or hear much overlap between. It was really good. It was really clear, and it was sort of upbeat and positive. You mentioned compliance. Is there perhaps within ABODs, I don't know, is there sort of a compliance dashboard that one could drill down on and see what types of issues are causing non-compliance? And some of them could be transient. You know, one depot has a problem with its cloud store and suddenly a major operator is non-compliant, but that's kind of fixed in a day. And is it, you know, or are you seeing a pattern where there's kind of a residue of quite small operators, etc., that are non-compliant and are struggling? What's the kind of the picture behind it?
it's mixed, right? So I see complaint. So we've still got the ongoing compliance issue, which is people just not engaging properly. So we've still got this tail end, and we're having some serious conversations about OTC about that, and I think they're talking about potentially issuing fines, but you know, we'll see if that happens. The other issue we've got is we had this kind of debate about school services and whether they should be in scope or out of scope. We went to the minister on the issue. He was very clear they should be in scope. So it's kind of that gives then DVSA and OTC a very clear mandate. They need to be enforced, and there was kind of a bit of a hiatus on that. Then I think for kind of BODS 2.0 in terms of compliance, so KPMG probably historically were focusing on the people who weren't engaged at all. I think when we get the BCT team on board, particularly, we'll start drilling down into non-compliance and data quality and trying to just drive up quality overall. So these are people who've engaged with the service, but actually their data is not quite there, and we'll try and help them as much as possible. But at some point, there are people who have used BODs, are in BODs, but not doing what they should be doing, and we'd probably have to take enforcement action. Is a kind of longer term plan.
And there is a dashboard, data monitoring dashboard in ABOD, which helps surface that, and authorities have got access to that, so they can see which operators in their area are, good and bad, and help identify some of those problems.
It's probably also worth saying that, obviously there's a lot of devolution going on in terms of bus funding. We're going to need local authorities to kind of help us as well with compliance, and the bus operators that they're funding to actually be compliant with BODs, I think, as well, if where possible.
Dan.
Yeah, okay, just a couple of points. So on the compliance, obviously you quoted 84% for timetables. So when I had a look this morning, I made it closer to 75%, 74%. So I think there was around 2,500 timetables that were either unpublished or required attention, according to the compliance CSV file that you can download. So I just want to know where the 84% came from. I think that's maybe how many are published, but the ones that are published, quite a few require attention. So I think I'd like to argue on that. I always like to bang the drum that we should be getting closer to 100% as much as possible as part of that. And my second question is again around ABODs. I was talking about opening that up and opening up ABODs to other people outside of local authorities, because I think there's quite a bit of interest in the private sector to access that. I think it'd be good for openness and transparency and things like that. And again, we've been asked by some people to build our own version of ABODs for different locations for private individuals to access. Has there been any thought given around that?
Things, Dan, if you could send over that CSV file, and I'll get someone to do the comparison and understand.
It's your CSV file on your compliance. You can go onto your website and you go to under the bus data. There's a set of reports, a data catalog, and there's a compliance thing in there. And on there you can filter it. So I filtered it based on, I can't remember, I filtered it on something, and it came up with between 2,400 or 2,497 that either were not provided, or if they had been provided, they had run out of date, or they required attention, or done up to 42-day look ahead and things like that. So it's your own data.
And then the second point: no immediate plans to grant carte blanche access to ABODs to non-operators, non-local authorities. However, I think the direction of travel is more transparency about publishing bus data. So I wouldn't be surprised either in a world or there's an opportunity to actually revisit that at some point.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick?
Got a few things written down, I'm afraid. BODS AVL compliance reports. I think some elements of it, certainly from the dashboard, need more information, because in some cases there's just a description there, but it doesn't really tell you what you're looking for. And I'm trying to support operators through some of those BODS AVL issues that they supposedly got according to the dashboard, and it's actually quite difficult to work out what's wrong. And then within those AVL reports, there's the common one for ticketer users around the block ref. And I know, David, I did contact the support team last week at Ticketer about this and did send me a response. But, you know, this block ref issue has been going on for, was it 2.5 years now, of operators being told that block ref's not in the data when it's merely a field matching issue. It's not right that an operator who's providing all the data is being marked down on their AVL score because of this block ref issue. Because everyone has got it, everyone's got it in their data, but it's just not matching in the compliance report.
So, Nick, is that an ABOD issue?
It's that the ABOD's reports of marking operators down for not providing block ref, but it's because the report is comparing the duty number to the block ref value in the trans exchange. So it's a mismatch in the matching report.
Right. Okay.
Have
you?
I've raised it as well
with the bod support.
Well, yeah, it just seems to be something that just doesn't seem to get progressed after, say, best part 2.5 years. And the other one which has come up recently is obviously in trans exchange, outbound and clockwise are considered the same, and inbound and anti-clockwise are considered the same. But I've come across with an operator who's got routes set up as clockwise, but their data through their data agent is set up as outbound, and BODS, the ABODS report again is failing that as non-compliant when it does effectively is compliant to the schema. So I think
I'll have a chat with you separately about that, Nick, about circulars and that sort of thing, about how we can address that.
And there are two more, I'm afraid. School services. So, Simon, you talk about school services, the minister considers in scope. What level of school service? Are we talking school services that are registered, or school services provided privately by a school to attract pupils from out of catchment area? Or are we going the whole hog with every contracted closed door service that an authority operates?
All school services are in scope of BODS. That's a registered local bus service.
So every school that's out there charging separate fares and doing it under private hire, they're out of scope still, are they?
If they're not if they're not considered a local registered bus service, then they're out of scope.
Some of them are marginal, whether they should be considered local bus or not. But yeah. And the last one is obviously we're scoring operators around timetable compliance, but I don't think it's as much of an issue as it has been in the past 6 months or so. But operators can only be as compliant with timetables as the OTC are with processing registrations. Backlogs of registrations have been reflecting poorly on operators for compliance with timeliness on timetables. And that's clearly not a correct and right position to be in, is it?
No, but my understanding at the moment, I think OTC have acknowledged that there have been issues, and they've put their hands up. We understand that the position is a lot better at the moment, but clearly it would be unfair for operators to be penalised for stuff that's outside of their control.
Yeah, I think I've said enough now.
Okay. Thank you, Nick. Ian.
Yeah, just picking up on Nick's point about school services. So there is a bit of a difference if we remember to the flow diagram previously, that if it's a contracted to an LTA school service, it's out of scope.
Yep.
And is that still remaining then? Even though they're registered, they are out of scope.
Yeah, I think if they're procured as part of the 96 Education Act, then they're out of scope.
Right. Okay. We're gonna have to go back and have a look at the the act then. I think that means.
But essentially, if a
private
local authority is procuring it, it's slightly different than somebody who's standing up essentially a commercial service that's targeting school people, that is saying actually it's not open to the general public, therefore we don't need to charge, therefore we don't need to comply with bots.
Yeah, this was a further point taken up with DFT, if they're still alive. The pro forma that LTAs send back with the registrations, it would make it a hell of a lot easier if there was another field added to say this is a contracted school service and he's outside the scope of BODs, and tick that, and you wouldn't have to go through all the hassle of finding yourself pinged on BODs because it's not been registered and having to go through the Ferrari of getting it all, well, yeah, it's out of scope. If you did it at source, we won't have half the problems we've got as a local authority, as a suggestion.
And I think with the digitisation and change to registrations, potentially it sounds like we've got some low hanging fruit there, and a potential win, something to fix.
You would hope so. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In the meantime, before we get to the nirvana of new electronic registrations that are going to solve all the world's ills, it feels like there's a need for some really clear guidance on school services about what's in and out of scope, because this isn't the first time that in this forum we've had those questions, and in others. I don't know whether that will be possible or not.
You almost sounded like Nick Ilsley when the EBSR was launched there, Tim. That was going to be nirvana. How long ago was that? I didn't have grey hair then.
Well, it's at least 12 years ago.
Yeah. Okay.
Seeing as that was the demise of Transport Direct. So, yeah, probably 24 years ago. Right. Okay. Peter.
Yeah, I was just wondering, in the context of compliance, we're not hearing about the revised trans exchange profile that was issued, and I mean the thought of really requiring one file per service would have in our view, a dramatic effect on resolving a lot of problems that come in the revision numbers in BODs. And but I imagine that it might be some while before that's everybody's complying with that. But is that what sort of time scale for that sort of compliance? Is that part of the discussion that we're having?
Not in any great detail at the moment, other than we're certainly taking advice from gentlemen on this call, Tim, on revising profiles and kind of setting out what that looks like in terms of roadmap and kind of giving people notice to comply, but nothing immediate at the moment.
Well, the guidance came out without any reference to timescales or when it would be applied. That's really why I just wonder what the status of that was in terms of the compliance discussion.
So I think probably it's fair to say the conversations with the data suppliers and their software suppliers has been going on, and we're probably not too far away from understanding when there might be possible to implement. Is it me, or is there some horrible feedbacky buzzy noise?
Sounds like a fly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So oh, it stopped. Okay. The conversations with the supply chain are going on, and probably not too far away from being able to go, this is the date that we expect. But I can't say whether that's not next week, but it's not next year that'll come out. No, it's we're getting closer to having enough understanding to be able to put a date to that.
Thank you.
Nick.
Yes, I was really interested by Nick's variant on the block ref issue. Tim convened a really useful working group meeting on block ref, and David Batchelor gave some particularly useful insight on not wishing to change something from something by adding relatively volatile data, making it look trustworthy when in fact, because it's operational, it can change. There may well be, I mean, Teresa and I volunteered to be part of a working group. It was at the time a KPMG working group, but very happy to work with Kanos. So I know from my own DFT days, really keen to help this, because my kind of poor blooming benighted customer standing at bus stop point of view is that if you can fix the block ref issue, you're going to fix the cross journey matching. And if you do that, an awful lot of journeys all over the country will suddenly miraculously start working. That would be the hope. Very happy to contribute, help, whatever. If you want to be really brave and you find a really brave minister, Simon, then you could do a consultation on this. You could sort of write something to a minister suggesting that actually it's time to mandate block ref, because an awful lot of stuff falls behind, it falls into line once legislation or regulations have been changed. But it's a knotty issue, and it's not one where you can go, oh yes, well, we will just command that change. But very happy to help with it.
Watch this space on some of the transparency requirements through the bus services app.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that, Nick. Right, is there anything else on BODs? Nick?
Yeah, it's just on the block ref. Unfortunately, I wasn't working on the day of that meeting, so otherwise I would have joined that one. I think I did send you some notes, didn't I, Tim? But,
yeah, you did. Yeah.
I'm just actually opening up one of our operators' reports, and I'll take a screenshot of where it is they're shown as failing and drop it in the chat, because it is just a persistent problem that, you know, the small operators in Cornwall, I've expended a lot of time between the operators, between NIPT, who are their data agents for BODs, to ensure that block reference and duty numbers is in all their data, and then it's falling down at this verification point and not working. It's just something that feels as though it just needs to get over the line and get sorted.
Yeah.
As I understand from Andy Hull, it is a backlog issue from KPMG days.
Let's have this conversation about that separately. Okay, David.
Just quickly on that point, if the operators use running boards into their ticket machines instead of duties, the running board number will get passed on. So if you can persuade some of your Cornwall operators to convert their duties to running boards, that will help.
Okay, I'll have a look at that. But because the crazy thing is, I've got a second operator who uses the same number for running board and duty, and of course he doesn't get picked up.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way around it. And I don't know if Amy's willing to say what happened in Durham when we supplied her with the duty numbers to put in the trans exchange, and we got matching there. So something did come from that meeting that we had.
Yeah,
it did.
Yeah, thank you.
No, we did exactly the same for Stanley Travel, and it's gone through, and we can see it in our real time, getting cross trip predictions, everything now. And BODs was going through.
Yeah, and you cracked trapeze as well, didn't you?
We did.
Excellent.
I shall look at that now.
No, just on the general compliance issue in BODs that I was going to say, the difference I think between services and fares is something to do with the fact that a flat fare service is not compliant at the minute in the validation. And the other problems that we're having that operators aren't aware of or not being told is when services go out of date because they haven't been updated for a year, or the 42 days look ahead lapses because there's school holidays. And they're the problems that we're getting most of at the minute, the operators say they're unaware of.
Okay. Mike?
Sorry, just coming back to what David said earlier about, did you say that operators need to put the block numbers in their trans exchange and then it all works? Is that what you did for Robert's coaches and then they didn't do it, or they took it out or something, being specific?
That was slightly different. That we converted Roberts to block numbers and they then told you they didn't want to use them anymore. So they've gone back to duties.
Yeah, and I've had to do it manually. Yeah.
So their duty numbers need to go in the trans exchange so that they'll match. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you for that. Right, let's move on to Naptan. Baby, are you going to do the update or?
Yes, I can do that. Thanks a lot, Tim, and good afternoon, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Phoebe. I'm the product manager stroke owner for Naptan NPTG. And I'm here to give an update on Naptan. So like BODs, we've recently gone through a tender process and we have a new supplier who, so ThoughtWorks was the old supplier and we've transitioned to version 1, who also subcontract to Sistra and Guaco. And of course, we retain lovely Tim as our SME. We have Alex on the call, who's our secondary SME, and Emma is also in the sport as delivery manager. So ThoughtWorks rolled off about 4 weeks ago, so really not that long ago. We've had quite an extensive handover period. At the moment, the team are looking at any improvements we can make to the technical infrastructure. They're also looking at our public comms, so for example, our website, newsletter, and those of you who attend our public meetings, you would have noticed we haven't had one. I think the last one might have been in October, November time. So we're looking at refreshing those public-facing forums. So you'll hear more over the course of the next couple of months. We're also looking at data quality. We're aware of quite a few data quality considerations for Naptan and NPTG. So at the right time, we'll be looking at those too. That's really everything I have to say, because we're in a state of flux and a lot of change at the moment. But hopefully I can report a bit more at the next meeting, or of course Emma or Alex may also be attending as well. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Dan?
Yes, it's mainly on the proactiveness of adding non-local authority maintained stops, so rail stations being the predominant one. I think I've got an outstanding support ticket at the moment with, of course, all the Northumberland line extensions still don't exist within Naptan, even though they opened 12 months ago, and obviously the South Cambridgeshire line that's being extended and things like that. And obviously I raised it first time 3 months ago to the Naptan team. It's still not in the, it's still not in the Naptan data, which is just, I know, it's surely just like entering a line into a database and you just get the coordinates and there it goes. I just can't fathom why that hasn't happened yet. And I guess the secondary point to that is there any processes being put in place to ensure that as these new kind of rail stations and things like that open, they'll be there from the day in which they open, as opposed to a delay 12 months down the line?
Yeah, no, I am aware of that, Dan. Thank you very much. Yes, so this is something the team is looking at, and actually thinking about a better way. As you said, we're not notified in good time before rail stations become live. So how are we going to tackle that problem, but in a systematic way? So it won't just be rail stations. Hopefully it will also be, I guess, ferry ports, airports and all that kind of stuff too. So please bear with us. And yeah, over the last 3 months, we have had a lot of change, and we're a small team. That's no excuse, of course, but it just means that we have to do things one step at a time. But you'll be happy to know that the work through our inbox, so the BAU, business as usual stuff, continues, and this is something that we are progressing.
Dan, I can confirm that that's very much being looked at in the past week. It's just getting finalised. So the team had to take a bit of time just to get their heads around setting up the new actuarial codes and the 910 data set based off tip locks, etc. So they're sort of just getting familiar with that whole process, but it's very much being looked at. I was discussing with the team last week, so it should be fairly imminent, if not already done.
Okay, great. Yeah, because obviously they're published via the Rail Data Marketplace, so it makes sense you'd have some sort of connection between that. So when they appear on there, you'd be able to drag them across. But yeah, I look forward to it.
I think there's a bit of a lag time when the new ones come out. I think they go into the rail timetables before getting into, because it was being driven from stations XML file from RDG, Rail Data Marketplace, but that isn't actually always as up to date as like the timetables for the new stations that come out. There can be a bit of a lag. So,
okay.
But we've got on top of that one. We've just got to action that now. So,
thank you very much.
Dan, I was just going to say, I'm looking at our developers board at the moment, and all of those tickets are actually sitting with our developer as we speak. So yeah, and I think the team is very much aware that we want to get a slicker process.
Okay.
Now we've kind of got our heads around it, so those things are more. I'm not going to use the word automated, but are smoother and therefore quicker for you. But yeah, nearly there with your batch.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions for the NAPTAN? No? Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much, BB and Alex and Emma.
Thank you.
Okay, so Artig update. We in the last few weeks have updated the guidance that we issued 4 years ago now on bridge strikes, with the latest technologies and good practice advice. This is an interim update because we're working with Network Rail on a more significant update to their guidance, which when that comes out towards the summer, we'll then refresh ours, and also some in the DFT who are working on digitizing traffic regulation orders. So when you want to close a road or change a speed limit and things like that, there's a legal process you have to go through. Most people's exposure to it is seeing a bit of paper tied to a lamp post, but and it's been paper based for many years. A lot of work's gone on and now it's digital, and so all of those records, at least new ones, are in digital form and therefore more easily consumed. There is an interesting question about how you go back to 1870, whatever it was, when they were effectively first introduced, to make sure that every speed limit and restriction and that sort of thing on the road is fully digitized. But no doubt that is in hand. But ultimately, this is the sort of information that's needed for more automated and connected vehicles, so that they know the speed limit at a point in time, rather than having to use cameras to recognize when there's a speed limit sign and things like that, which is what will happen in your current vehicle. But one of the side effects and positive impacts of this for public transport is it will be the first official register of bridge heights. So at the moment, there's a number of commercial sources for this data, some of it more anecdotal, some of it recorded by operators manually into systems and things like that. So this will become the first official source of that, as well as being really useful to scheduling systems and prediction engines and things like that to help improve calculations. Yeah, that's some interesting stuff going on there. Dan?
Yeah, it's on the DTRO stuff. So that they backed away from doing the historical TROs and publishing all of that stuff. So it's only be the updates. So I wouldn't get your hopes up on all the historical TROs being made public, because they've backed away from that. There's lots of pushback from local authorities that they wouldn't be able to redigitize all the old orders that are done. But yes, but I think all the new ones, and I think that's it, at 50% of local authorities are now publishing like TTROs, temporary traffic regulation orders, and things like that. So it's definitely a step in the right direction. But I think they've backed away from the historical stuff.
John? Oh, no.
At the risk of stating the bleeding obvious, although the vast majority of offending low bridges belong to Network Rail, there are others. Not long ago, a London bus managed to hit an aqueduct belonging to the Canal and Rivers Trust. So I hope whatever data capture system you're using extends to all offending bridges rather than simply those in rail ownership, although those are the majority.
Yeah. It would traffic regulation orders record the height, and so yeah, there's a challenge, as Dan says, about the historical stuff, which at some point somebody's going to have to do and enforce. And I know at least a couple of authorities that are actually going back and trying to digitize everything because they have uses for it in traffic management and things like that. But yeah, I mean, the low bridge systems that are available do encompass everything, not just rail bridges. It's just Network Rail have the most skin in the game, and therefore the keenest to help people avoid them. And whilst it's a serious problem for buses, volume wise, it's much more likely to be an HGV that hits them, so they have a bit of a wider target audience than just public transport.
Appreciate. I mean, in theory, it should never happen to buses because there's either something wrong with route planning or something wrong with driver compliance, but they do, and obviously anything we've done to mitigate that's excellent.
Yeah, Mike.
I've just got a couple of things to say on this. I'm surprised that there is no sort of centralized database of bridge heights. So if you go out and buy like a trucker's atlas, which you can do, which has got bridge heights on certainly the major roads, say the A and B roads, that information, where's that getting the information from, for example? Is it some commercial database?
Yeah. There's 3 or 4 organisations that provide all sorts of road data above and beyond the basic geometry, and so it'll come from one or more of those.
Okay, right.
Incredible though it seems, some of these sat-nav people charge the railways for putting that information out to their users. Extraordinary. British Rail Network Rail has to pay to have people told not to hit its bridges. But there you
Ordnance Survey have all the bridge heights, and they were forced to release them. Certainly for TfL, we don't know whether it's national. Commercial organisations like Geist can do it as well, but
yeah, it's not national, Nick.
The other thing,
and
I think
it's
the
still
whole
subject to OS copyright.
The whole thing around bridge strikes the whole area is archaic in my book, and I'm not trying to defend drivers who hit low bridges, but very often I've looked when there's been recent incidents, and I've looked at the actual road, and very often the sign has been missing in recent years. And if you go back through Google Street View, you'll see that the sign was there, or it's off there more recently. So like the maintenance of signage is not that good in a lot of cases. So the whole area does need a good looking at, definitely.
Yeah. Neil.
Yeah, the sign's maybe been hit by the same accident as the bridge. Yeah, so Stagecoach previously we took TomTom data at vast expense, and it has bridge heights as part of a general road restrictions information on the road network. So much like you can turn left but you can't turn right, or you can go straight on only, there's a height restriction. And the usefulness about that is that it's for the street segment, so it's not just a point where the bridge is. So it gives you so that's part of our bridge strike warning system that goes into the buses. So it's the whole street segment. So it stops you going up the street segment before you get to the point where the bridge is. So something like that would be useful tied to the road network rather than just the point of where the actual bridge is.
Yeah.
There is signage. If the signage is correct, there is meant to be a sign at the last decision point, isn't there, where you could turn round, for example.
Yeah, there are lots of requirements and expectations for signage and things like that. But yeah. Okay, so that bridge strike guidance has been updated, and there'll be another one later on in the year. We've got a couple of working groups running at the moment, which I suspect some of you are involved in, looking at accessibility of information, one looking at printed information and the other one looking at digital information, so online, physical, display boards at stops and things like that, with the objective of updating the existing document we've got on digital information and producing for the first time in 20 years something on printed information accessibility and the current good practice. So if you want to get involved in any of those working groups, you do not have to be an RTIG member. We will take input from anywhere, because we're keen to make this right and get it right. So yeah, they are ongoing, and they will publish sort of summerish sort of time, and we're coordinating with the Campaign for Better Transport on this, who are doing their standardisation of bus stop work at the moment. If you remember, they published a paper about 12 months ago or so, and there's other groups that they're running that are looking at the physical aspects of stops and things like that. So yeah, let me know if you want to be involved in any of them. And picking up on the conversations earlier about disruptions and presenting those, we have a face-to-face event in Manchester on the 24th of March, talking about disruptions and managing those. Again, let me know if you want more on that. Okay, any questions about RTIG stuff? No. Okay, then European standards development. I circulated a note on this with the papers for the meeting. The long-running work on a standard for historical data, opera, raw data and statistics, that is coming to a conclusion. It's been through the first stage of commenting. Some of you, well, perhaps not. Some people that turn up to this sometimes have commented, and so there's been some useful input into that. And in a couple of months' time, that will be published more formally for voting, and I'll make the final draft of that available for people. I can't make the final version available because of send restrictions, but hey, you can review and comment on the final version as much as you want, as long as it's not the final one. Okay, right. Then there is work on Common Glossary, which is just going through the formalisation process, looking at all of the different languages and terms used in EU legislation, with an aim to try and standardise that. It might be an interesting thing to try and do in the UK, to look at how things like interoperability and bus stop are used in different legislations, and the way that they can be interpreted, because it's been extremely enlightening in Europe, and there'll be a raft of legislative changes off the back of that. But that'll be interesting. Probably the big news out of the rest of it is version 2 of NetX has been published. There's quite a lot of updates in that documentation. None of it affects the NetX fares profile that we use for BODs, because that is fixed to the previous version. But at some point we will need to do an update to it. But if you're using systems that provide data into Europe and things like that, it's worth keeping up to date on that. And the XSD for that has been published, and we've got a list of things that are updated. There are a few breaking changes if you're used to using the old version of NetX, but they're largely useful breaking changes in that they're enforcing things in a more strict way and things like that, to remove some of the opportunities for different ways of doing things. There's work going on to bring all of the different transmodel architectures together into a single GitHub. So at the moment, Siri and NetX and Opera and Open Journey Planner and things, they all have their own separate GitHubs all over the place. If you happen to know the location and the URL of the name, then yep, you're doing well. But they're all a bit all over the place, and they're being brought together into one place, so that you only need to know about one place and you can look at the different repositories. It will have some big positive impacts if you use things like the Open Journey Planner and NetX, which borrow schema elements from different schemas. So NetX uses, for example, the way that Siri communicates to help move files around and things like that, if you're doing that through APIs and things like that. And so rather than there being horrible cross-linked schemas which cause conflict sometimes if you're trying to validate, a lot of those problems will go away once we've done that move. And so yeah, new location is available over the next couple of months. Everything will move to that, so you might need to refresh your repositories and sources at some point. Okay, so I think that's probably the things of note from European update. Any questions, John?
I'm just tempted to remark slightly whimsically, apropos of your comments about the need for or the advantages of standardization in terminology. What awkward things happen when you start translating terms, and one of the problematic ones is bus shelter, because no bus has ever been seen to shelter in one, so it's entirely inapposite as a description of that piece of street furniture.
Yes, yes. Yes, thank you, John. Anything else on Europe? No. Okay. That then takes us to the issues log. At the moment, there are 4 open ones. I propose that we close issue 103. I did circulate a list of these. Personalised fare zones. This was something that Wales requested. So they have going to have a concept of ticketed travel zones that are bespoke to individuals rather than bus stops and more typical geographies. So we've worked through the expected design of that ticketing scheme with them and identified we can actually do it in Metex version 2, so there's no need for a change as a result of that. So they're happy for that to be closed. There's one on supporting the block number. So this we had a session on, which we've already referenced, and it was very useful feedback and information from that. And that will be used to feed into the PTI profile and as Simon said earlier, maybe linked to Bus Service Act updates. So that one will stay open. 105 on distance-based fares, that needs to be rolled into an update to the fares profile, which I'm not quite sure when that will happen at the moment. So that one will remain open. And the final but far from the least important, updating Transport Authority. So been a lot of changes to local transport authorities over the last 16 years, which is when it was last updated in TransExchange. So there are authorities that have been in existence for nearly 10 years now that aren't in that list. We now have a list of local transport authorities that will be valid from April, that each of the respective 3 governments, 4, because Northern Ireland have fed back on how they want things as well. So there will be from a list from April. I'm just in the process of updating the schema. That's nearly ready, and the documentation. So at some point during this month, that will be released. It will be released on the PTI, on the PTIC website first, and then the schema will be updated on the formal TransExchange site at some point during March, once DFT's IT team have done that. But as I say, we'll make the schema available in a zip file pretty soon, both for 2.4.1, which will then become the latest 2.4, but also 2.5.2 for those that use TransExchange 2.5. That will require people to update schema sources and things like that if you're interested in the local transport authority. So if you're doing EBSR, then you'll need to update it. And if you're interested in which authority is funding services, which I know some authorities are interested in having that information on printed information and things like that. So yeah, there'll be quite a lot of updating of systems to do as a result of this. Any questions on that Transport Authority update in particular? No. Okay. Any other issues? Anything else needs sorting out in standards? No. Okay. In which case, our next meeting is the 4th of June. So look forward to seeing you there. Is there any other business? No? Okay. Nick?
Yeah, I think going back to some of what was said earlier, I think there has to be a big push on operators getting their data right, because the battles I'm having at the moment, we've just rolled out a new real-time system, which has moved away from the conventional method of buying a journey time engine, but we're consuming data from David's well aware of this anyway, because he's been involved in the conversation. So we're trying to use Siri ET data coming straight from source. And one of the biggest challenges we're finding is actually the source schedule data in the systems doesn't match, because there's so many points to put that data in. So, it's got to go into Ticketer, it's got to go into BODS, it's got to go into National PTI, because all of those are a factor in our data flow. If one bit's misaligned, it's screwing the whole real time up. And operators have really got to start owning their data.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's quite a lot of people that would agree with you there, Nick, that is an issue, and there needs to be more visibility of those flows to help that transparency.
We thought going for an RTIC compliant real-time system would make life easier. That's not the way I feel at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. John.
Again, at the risk of stating the obvious, your list of local transport authorities that got frozen in time for a decade or more, presumably now it's been updated, there's going to be some system in place for keeping it current, because there's a lot of local government reorganisation down the line in the next 3 years. And anything that is current today isn't going to be current in 12 months' time, let alone 24 or 36 months' time. So it's fairly crucial that's kept abreast of changes that are in the offing.
Yeah, you're quite right, John. So this will be a list that is as of April 2026. And the unfortunate situation is that in TransExchange, that list of authorities is hard coded. It will be a big change to move away from that. So we're avoiding that. And so, yeah, there will, whenever there's sufficient change, need to update the version of TransExchange to reflect that. But I think we'll be okay for probably 18 months after this update. Oh, that's the best intelligence anyway.
I wish you joy of it, yeah.
It was very painful to get to the list. Harder than anybody was expecting. Okay. Anything else? Neil?
Yeah, just thinking about that, and I remember banging my head trying to find out where the traffic traffic things were, and using the government statistical codes to encode them and map them and all that sort of stuff. Nightmare. Is there a way that maybe NAPTAN could have just a lookup table? You know how there's a lookup table that they have for settlements, and the data in that's all kind of a bit itty, you know, with suburbs and all that, and things are misnamed and all that sort of stuff. But is that a potential like halfway house solution? Just have a lookup table in NAPTAN for the traffic authority?
Maybe for a particular bus stop.
Yeah, just to look at the actual code to a transport authority.
Well, the first 3 digits is the ATCO area code, and so you can already tell that directly.
Yeah, but if the traffic commission or things, the government devolution means that what was Merseyside is now Manchester or whatever, then that, you know, updating a lookup table in NAPTAN may be easier than, so you can keep your first 3 digits. You're just updating the lookup table.
You can get that joined through, there's administrative area code, which is in the NAPTAN stop information, which is a sort of like a surrogate key to the actual stop areas in the NPTG file.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I have a similar thing. So you're maintaining that list as the sort of current transport authority.
So unfortunately, life is not quite that simple. If it was a direct translation of this local transport authority is changing the name, then that will be relatively easy. So at the moment, for example, it has South Yorkshire PTE in there, and that will change to South Yorkshire MCA. That one's easy, but take, for example, Bournemouth, Poole and Christchurch. There's a bit of Hampshire that has gone into that.
Dorset, I think, yeah.
and that sort of thing, and sometimes they're splitting, and under the local government reorganisations side of things, parts of councils are moving into other council areas and things like that, so it's not a one-to-one translation.
Okay.
But
suppose the way
you
around
can
that
get
is you
some
don't
way
use
towards it.
I suppose one way around that is you don't use the first 3 digits, you use the whole ATCO code. So you're talking your individual bus stop.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of duplication, but it might be easier than the pain of otherwise upgrading Transit Exchange, as you said, to be a dynamic thing as opposed to hard coded.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I'll have a think about that. Thank you, Neil. That is potentially useful. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? No. Okay. In which case, thank you all for your time this afternoon. Look forward to seeing you on the 4th of June, but probably beforehand on a call somewhere.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
You all.